Om Brahmanandam Paramasugadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvaditam Gaganasadarsham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam. Today being Janmashtami, I should start with Sri Krishnaya Namaha as a greeting. And I thank the authorities of this temple, the president, the secretary, and all other members for inviting me here. I'm very glad to be here on Janmashtami, honestly. So, today, being Janmashtami, considered to be the birth of Krishna as a Purna Avatara in this world, I would like to go to the question of what did he preach? Well, you will see Krishna in many forms and many roles, and that's how somebody, an extraordinary being, operates in different planes. An ordinary being operates like me only in one plane. An extraordinary being operates in different planes. And here you have a person who from his youth, from his childhood, has been doing things, at least that's what we read in the Bhagavat, in the scriptures, things which are almost like impossible for a normal human being to do. And also things which seem to be so contradictory sometimes. Sometimes you find him in playing the flute and cavorting with the gopis in Vrindavan. And then you find him fighting, having a battle with Kamsa. And then you find him as a Jagat Guru, sitting and teaching Arjuna in the chariot on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So you see what so many angles, so many ways of representing the energy of the divine. People misunderstand. Sometimes, you ask them to read the Bhagavat, they'll directly go to the 10th canto and say, what is this? He's cavorting around in Vrindavan. Before 10 there are 9 chapters, and after 10 there are many chapters in the Bhagavat. This is a kaleidoscopic expression of divinity in different forms, different ways, different acts. We can't imitate that. An ordinary human being, if he starts imitating this, will usually end up in great trouble. So, but then what can you learn? What you can learn is what is taught by somebody. You can't imitate somebody's life, but you can learn from what he teaches, because that is what is meant for us as human beings. In any case, it's dangerous to imitate spiritual teachers and spiritual manifestations and behave as if we are like them. It doesn't work that way. I want to tell you a little story. But we'll come back to Krishna and the teachings. No, we'll divert from that. I don't want to do the story now. So the question that comes from the teachings of Krishna, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, from chapter 1 to chapter 18, each chapter is called a yoga. Starting with Arjuna Vishada Yoga till Sannyasa Yoga. So, the Gita forms the middle of what you call a Prasthanatraya. When you do Vedantic studies, you have on one hand the Upanishads, on the other hand the Brahma Sutras, and then in the middle comes the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, I would say that first would come the Bhagavad Gita, because all those things in the Upanishads, the high sounding, the intellectual truths that have been not intellectual truths, truths in intellectual ways have been discussed. comes in the Gita in simple language which you and I can understand. This is the speciality of the Gita. In fact, Vedavyasa, while writing the Shanti of the introductory slokas of the Bhagavad Gita, you must be knowing that it forms part of the Mahabharata in the Bhishma Parva. He said something very interesting. He said, the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Upanishads. And he said it in this beautiful language, Sanskrit, in a beautiful way, by saying, if you consider all the Upanishads as cows, everybody loves cows, and if you consider Krishna to be the person who milks the cows, and if you consider Arjuna to be the little calf, you know what happens when the calf hits its head on the udder of the cow? The milk comes, which the wise men enjoy, that milk, and which is the nectar of the Gita. This is the description. Beautiful. It sums up the teachings of the Gita, or what it introduces. And the sloka used is very beautiful. Sarvo Upanishato Gao Dugda Gopalanandana Krishna Partho Vatsaha. Arjuna, the Partha is the little calf. Sudhir Bhokta, which the wise enjoy. I don't know if you understand that the word Sudhir means the wise. I have a good friend called Sudhir, little bit off, but wise. So, Sudhir Bhokta, Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat. And the milk that comes is the great nectar of the Gita. This is how it has been described. So you can understand that the highest truths of the Upanishads, which is the core teaching of our culture and philosophy, is summed up beautifully in the 18 chapters of the Gita. And if you ask me, why is all this? Why don't we just lead our lives and carry on with things? Why should we get into the Gita? In fact, one of my friends handed over, some sounds are coming here. It's okay. It's over. Taking prasadam, buckets. So, we are also looking forward afterwards. You know the meaning of the word prasadam? It's handed over when you go to a temple and come out. One, it means sweet or food. It also means that it's a substitute word in the Sanskrit dictionary, prasad, for ananda. Prasadam, which means anandam, happiness. This is what I was coming to. So if you ask, what is the need to do all this? I mean, I have my job, I'm working with whatever, Microsoft or whatever I am, and I take my dog for a walk. I have my scotch in the evening. So why all this Gita business, The thing is that the problem is we have to sometimes ask, why have the ancient teachers, the wise, given these things to us? There must be some reason behind. This can be answered. We'll come to the Gita, but before that, I want the Gita because today is Janmashtami. This is the great message of Krishna sitting in the battlefield of Kurukshetra talking to Arjuna. Why? Because if you look carefully, forget the Gita, Upanishads, nothing, day-to-day life. We have the central question which we can ask. Why are we living? What is it that we seek in life? Why are we working so hard? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? What is the aim of life? What are we actually seeking? Every one of us, you and me. If you examine this carefully, you'll find that what human beings are looking for, which keeps the world moving, of course. In fact, the world is called Jagat in Sanskrit because it comes from the word Jagatyam. It means that which constantly moves. So, what makes us move? What makes us reach out? What makes it go forward? What's it that we are looking for? Look carefully. Happiness. Nobody wants sorrow. In fact, we are ready to take any amount of pain if we find happiness at the other end. Even in worldly things, we work very hard. We don't mind any sacrifice, provided we have 100 million in the bank at the end of it. What does that mean? Happiness. This is what we seek. Now the question the Gita and the other Upanishads ask is, do we really find this? If you had found this, they would have stopped. But we don't. Continue. You have something? You think this will make me happy? Yeah, for a short while. And then I want to move because it's not over. So this human mind, the tendency to fulfill itself, to be full, the fullness, which has a beautiful word in Sanskrit, Purna, completeness, fullness. It is this fullness that we seek. And Purna is a substitute word for the Supreme Brahman. It is this Purna that we seek in this world also. So if you say somebody is not interested, we are all interested, but we don't know which way to turn. So this is what we seek. And the question is, do we find it? Now I'll tell you a story. There was a Maharaja of Patiala who wanted to expand his kingdom and make the borders of Patiala wider. So in those days you had to get the permission from the Mughal emperor who sits in Delhi. The last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was the emperor. So the Maharaja of Patiala came to meet him at the Red Fort. And then he said to him, I want to expand my kingdom and I need permission from you to do that. And also I need help to do this. So the emperor said, the emperor of Delhi said, okay, that's fine, but just go look out of the window of the Red Fort. Just look out. He looked out. There under a tree was sitting a fakir. You know what's a fakir? There was one fakir who lived in Shirdi. This fakir meaning somebody with just a cloth to wear, and he had a begging bowl in his hand. Then he looked at him and his face was in great happiness and ecstasy. He seemed to be looking up and talking something, and his face was in ecstasy. So he came back and he was perplexed. He was wondering, why did the emperor show me this fakir? So the emperor asked him, now you looked at my face and you looked at that fakir's face. In whose face did you see happiness? Huh? So now you do one thing. You go to Patiala or somewhere. Think about this properly. And then when you come to a conclusion, you still want to expand Patiala, come back. I'll let you do it. The story is, the man walked out. He neither went to Patiala nor he came back to Delhi. Nobody knows where he went. Nobody knows. Several years later, the then Maharaja of Patiala, who was his brother, younger brother, because there was nobody, so he took over. Natural succession, no elections, he just took over. And then the Maharaja then of Patiala decided to go on a pilgrimage. You know how the Maharaja goes on a pilgrimage? There's a big retinue following him. So all of them arrived in Rishikesh. And then in Rishikesh, somebody asked him, somebody told him, you're going on a pilgrimage to Badrinath and Kedar and all these dangerous places to go. It's better you take the blessings of a saint before you go. So he said, where is the saint? He said, in Lakshman Jhula, in a big cave, there is a great yogi. Go and take his blessings. So he said, okay. So the king and his entire retinue trooped into this cave. And there was this yogi sitting with his eyes closed. What is it called? Dreadlocks tied up. So the Maharaja went and prostrated before him and said, Maharaj, we are going to Badri, Kedar, Char Dham. Please bless us. Then the the yogi opened his eyes. For a second, his brother said, these are familiar eyes. Then the yogi said, Tathastu, so be it. Then the brother said, not only familiar eyes, this voice, which once upon a time said cut off his head, was sitting here. He said, brother, what are you doing here? Come back to Patiala. Because I've taken over because you were not there. That's why I've taken over. Please welcome, come back to Patiala. So the yogi said to him, when you came in and prostrated, what did you call me? He said, I called you Maharaj, right? Yeah, so he said, I am the Maharaj of the entire universe. Why should I go to this little Patiala of yours? You know what I mean? So we seek these Patialas, which is okay. In fact, later on, he became famous, well known as Tapasviji Maharaj. There's one lady sitting here whose grandfather used to know him. Father used to Tapasviji Maharaj. He came and settled down in the south. Of course, his samadhi is in Haryana. But so, we all seek this happiness in some way. And if we look carefully, every action we do, everything we do is to find this happiness. Permanent happiness, permanent expansion. But the Upanishad has a beautiful message. It says, the supreme reality is absolute bliss, and it is also absolute fulfillment, fullness, Purna. And therefore the Upanishad says, Purnamada, that is complete. But the good news next says, Purnam idam, this is also complete. And this completeness comes from that completeness, but we don't realize it's complete. And it remains always complete, constant. That completeness or Purna has another word to describe it in the scriptures, and that is Satchidananda. Now when you say Satchidananda, it's actually made up of 3 syllables. One is Sat, the other is Chit, and the last one is Ananda. Now Sat is a word, expression used to say the real. Why real? In contrast to that which is unreal. What is unreal? That which is impermanent. Everything is impermanent. We are impermanent. The world is impermanent. We come, we go, world goes on, but that's also impermanent. But in this impermanency, is there a permanency? That permanency, fortunately for us, is in the heart. I mean, I say heart, not the organ. In the core of our consciousness, there is a part of that Purna, which is completeness. And it is this that we seek, looking for it in all directions until we go to rest in peace. I think not finding it. Therefore, which doesn't mean that you should abandon the world and run away. It doesn't work. You can abandon the world, but you can't go anywhere, because even if you go somewhere in solitude, you're taking your mind with you. And the mind is the cause of the mischief, not the world. You can enjoy this world if your mind is under control. This is the mischief. If you can see a state where your mind becomes quiet, then you can enjoy the same world and not get caught up in this confusion. So, this lesson of trying to find the happiness that we all seek but in a different direction, is what is taught in the Vedanta, and in the Gita it is simplified and made accessible to most people. You must remember that the Gita is supposed to have been taught in a battlefield. Arjuna Vishada Yoga is the first chapter. It's a battlefield of life. Battlefield of this life, which we all face. We are all Arjunas in this sense. And there is a little whisper coming from Krishna inside, which we prefer not to hear, usually. If you could only lend ear to that. It's not as if it's far away. So, this seeking of the truth is the essence of the Gita. Kabir Das, the great weaver saint, put it in a beautiful way by saying, you've heard of Kabir Das, used to be living in Banaras weaving cloth. He said, there is a kind of deer in the Himalayas called a musk deer. M-U-S-K, musk. In Sanskrit it's called a kasturi murga. It has a little pouch under his belly. In a particular season, musk is produced, kasturi is produced. And when this happens, there is a fragrance in the air, beautiful fragrance in the air. And the poor deer, not knowing the source from which the fragrance is coming, goes looking for it everywhere in the forest. Pushes its snout into thorny bushes and bleeds, but doesn't know where to find. Doesn't know it's coming from under its belly. Kabir Das said, this is the problem with us. The fragrance is there, but we think it's coming from there. It's actually coming from here. So turn around and look, and you will find it right inside. All other things, temples, worship, everything is made so that finally one goes within. Why is an image in a temple kept in a garbhagriha? House, which is sanctum sanctorum. Because it is the same deity which we can't see outside, sitting inside us as the Antaryami. It is to remind us that all these modes of worship have been made, so that sometime we might turn in and look and say, hey, this is inside me. Now if it is inside me, all of us are walking temples of God, of the Supreme. What happened? Something. Nothing. So, this moving inside in Vedanta is called the Nivritti Marga. And thinking that it is outside and looking for it is called Pravritti Marga. So when you understand the difference between the two, please understand, which doesn't mean that you have to shave your head, you have to abandon everything, wear different colored clothes and get out. No. It means in your mind you should understand that the happiness that you seek outside is to be found in the core of our being, in our hearts. This is all that. Turn around. And then, in whichever way we like to think of the divine also as sitting inside your heart, as Antaryam. Can be formless, with form, it doesn't matter. Krishna, Bhagavati, Rama. Depends on you. Now that is one great thing about this system of thought called the Hindu system of thought, that you can conceive of the Supreme Being in any form you like, or as the formless, Brahman. This freedom is very difficult to get anywhere else. Very difficult. Because you only follow one line. You look at one side, which is okay for you, but there are other ways of looking at it. Which is why 2000 years ago the Vedas said, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vedanti, there is one truth, but the wise may call it by different names. So this is exactly the teaching of the Gita. When Krishna sitting there on the chariot starts with the confused and sorrowful state of mind of Arjuna, almost takes him with, leading him by his hand, step by step, until he reaches the final step, which is Sannyasa Yoga. So this whole process is done in these 18 chapters. And one goes gradually from understanding Sankhya Yoga is about the material world and the inner spirit, and then you go on to Karma Yoga, how to live in this world and yet not get caught by it. You have to live in it, you cannot escape. Even if you go to an ashram, there are human beings there. Right? I have been to many ashrams, I know it. There are humans, so there is everything, as much as anywhere else. So that's not a solution. The solution is, you can go there if you like, but you have to turn within. Otherwise you will see only what is happening outside. And you are in the same boat. So this whole process of moving into the inner, to the depths of your consciousness, is the entire teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, if you ask me, is there a single teaching there? It's difficult to pinpoint, because 18 chapters are called 18 yogas. The end of each chapter, Vyasa himself has put in saying, Iri Srimad Bhagavad Gita, so Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam, that means this is the Bhagavad Gita. It is the knowledge of the Brahman, of the Supreme Being. Yoga Shastre, it is the science of yoga, of how to find that. Now yoga, I heard they're teaching yoga. Yoga does not only mean physical exercise. Yoga is the attempt to figure out how to reach within and find the divine. That's the meaning of the word yuj. So, then it says Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. And then the chapter is stated. So it's a textbook that describes the philosophy, the metaphysics, and the practice by which you can get there. And the speciality of the Gita is that every chapter is a different approach to this goal. There is Karma Yoga, there is Dhyana Yoga, there is Bhakti. 12th chapter, so I didn't say that now. And several yogas, Sannyasa Yoga, Purushottama Yoga, and so on and so forth. So, this gradual holding hand and taking one step by step to the highest is the essence of the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Having said that, I want to also mention that when we talk about the Gita, one should also not forget that Bhakti is also given a lot of importance. It's not just the intellectual. People think that if you are intellectual, you can find the Supreme Being fast. The Upanishad says that the greatest function of the Upanishad is that the most intelligent person soon realizes the limitations of his intellect. This is the teaching. In Manasana Manyute Yana Hurmano Matam Kenopanishad. That which even the mind cannot conceive, and because of which the mind exists, that is the supreme reality. So, the intelligent man very soon realizes how limited one's intelligence is. Why? Because it is based on the inputs that come to us only from the 5 senses, the Panchendriyas. We have no other instrument of perception. What do we have? Is there a 6th? We don't know as yet. There are only 5 instruments of perception, and they may be imperfect and sometimes even illusory. If you ask me a simple example, that every morning we see the sunrise. Every evening you see the sunset. That's what you see, right? But if seeing is believing, well, a high school boy will tell you that the sun neither rises nor sets. The world is moving. But that's what we see. How perfect are our instruments of perception? And our entire intelligence is based, our rational framework is based on inputs coming through these 5 senses. We have only 5, you know the 5 senses. Panchendriyas, eyes, chakshu, ear, nose, tongue, and touch. We don't have any other. Now from these 5 senses, we get all the inputs that the mind then processes and forms what we call our framework, rational framework. How perfect can it be? Now, the teaching of the Upanishads and the Gita is that there are other instruments of perception in the human system which are dormant in most cases and which can be awakened. When these are awakened, then you begin to have insights into things which are not physical and normal, which are intelligent and our sense organs cannot comprehend. This is the turning point. So therefore, when one begins to realize this, then one begins searching for these instruments of perception. And these instruments of perception, happily for us, are right in us and no need to search for them outside. It's inside us. It can happen to people with great feelings as a devotional, spontaneous movement towards the divine. It can happen for a yogi through step-by-step practice of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama and so on. It can happen to the Vedantin by understanding the truth that what he's seeking cannot be found in words and little bit of intellectual castle building. Different ways of doing it. The fact remains that we need to understand that what we seek is not perfectly found outside, and that we need to turn in to seek the essence of our being, which is part of the divine. This is the core of the teaching. So, now we come again to Bhakti Yoga, which is the 12th chapter. People think Bhakti is only for the simple-minded, rural folk in the villages or retired people or so on. In fact, that is not so. It is a completely different understanding of Bhakti. Bhakti means first understanding that with our limited perceptions, if we are searching for God or truth, or we cannot find it. So then what do? Shut up. Stop this activity and see if there's any other way. And then that, when you understand the limitations, that is called surrender. And when this happens, there is a spontaneous feeling in the heart for the divine, which we know cannot be intellectually solved. When this happens, it is the beginning of what is called devotion. Okay. Now, in the Gita, this is described in a beautiful way in the 12th chapter called Bhakti Yoga, where Arjuna asks, one of the few chapters which starts with Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna said, most of it is Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. There are the chapters also few. So, Arjuna asks this question, please tell me who is the greatest of bhaktas? One who worships you as the supreme Brahman, or one who worships you as Krishna or Rama or somebody standing? Who do you think? Krishna goes about explaining it in a nice way. He doesn't go directly to the question. He says, that is fine, you can worship the Supreme Being as the formless Almighty, all that is okay. Great rishis have done that. But for us human beings, who are usually form and name oriented, Namarupa, it's difficult to fix your attention on something so vast and infinite. So it's a good idea to go with something you know. And therefore, he says, it's nice to worship the deity as you like, which you are attracted towards. You know, we turn into the supreme Vedanta and very soon give up, because there is no attractions there. However, if you think of it as something you can carry in your hand and worship, you get attached to it. Now, attachment is essential to detach from the outer attachment. You can't simply go into the blank. You'll come back again. There is a beautiful story. If you go to Srirangam, where Ramanujacharya installed Ranganatha, Mahavishnu, as Ranganatha, there will be many little temples there. And one of the prominent temples is called Tulukanachiyar. Very interesting concept. Apparently, one of the emperors, I think Alauddin Khilji, when he conquered, came towards the south, he took away a beautiful little Krishna in baby form, not in baby form, in a young boy form, along with his plunder. And he took it to his palace and kept it there. He had a daughter, a young daughter, who used to play with toys. She fell in love with this little form. And she worshipped it. So, Ramanujacharya was looking for it. So he came to know that it is in the palace. So he came to the king and said, "You have taken all gold, everything, but this is my favorite Krishna, so Vishnu, so give it to me because I want to take it back there and install it." And he said, "I would have given it to you, but my daughter is fallen in love with it. I can't give it to you." So finally, with great persuasion, he gave it. So he brought it and installed it again in Srirangam. And then the girl who was in the palace could not sleep, could not eat, could do nothing. So the story is, one night, without informing anybody, she came all the way, entered the temple and merged into the deity. She is installed there and she is called Tulukanachiyar. So installed by Ramanujacharya. Tuluk in the Tamil language means foreigner or Turkish. So how did this spontaneously come, this devotion for this girl looking at this image? So this can happen. However, there are other ways, which is step by step, like the practice of yoga. Some people do say, all this is nonsense, emotional, and so on. So then, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, go slowly, systematically. This is the thing about the Gita. There are different ways of looking at it. Anyway, we are in the 12th chapter of Bhakti Yoga. So, Arjuna says to Krishna, so what do you think I should do? He said, either way, you can worship the Supreme Being and find Him through Jnana Marga and Vedanta. Rishis have done it, but it's easier because we are all form-oriented, name-oriented, to worship and go. But he says it doesn't matter either way. But there are some qualities that you need to cultivate. If you have those qualities and attributes, no matter how you worship, I would consider such a person to be a great yogi or a great devotee of mine. He says, what are the qualities? The first quality is somebody who has control over their sense organs and emotions. Samniyam indriya gramam. One who has his indriyas caught together. Not that you shouldn't use the senses, but it should be under the control of the mind, not the other way around. Second qualification. Sarvatra Samabuddhaya. Now, Sarvatra Samabuddhaya in the 12th chapter is expanded in the last parts, slokas, by saying Tulya Ninda Stutir Mauni. That means a Mauni or a yogi is one for whom praise and blame are alike. That's not our life, right? Somebody praises at us, then we are flying. Sometimes we are flying so much that our BP may go up. Somebody blames us and we are depressed. This is our daily life. Up and down, up and down. What do you expect? How does happiness come? The wise man or the rishi or the yogi is one. For him, praise and blame are equal. There is no difference. In fact, he probably welcomes blame more than praise. Because if you keep flattering somebody all the time, there's an old Lata Mangeshkar song, I don't know if you remember, Meethi meethi baaton se bachna zara. If somebody tells you 100 days every morning that you're a great yogi, next the 101st day you might really think you're a great yogi. But if somebody puts you down, then you know where you stand. So you should appreciate blame more than praise, actually. But it doesn't matter. The yogi is supposed to look at it equally. So then sorrow and happiness equally. Sukha dukkha. Sukha and dukkha. Sitoshna sukha dukkheshu, both sukha dukkha, heat and cold, are equal for the yogi. Because happiness and sorrow are part of this world. You can't escape totally from it. What is the point in getting upset about it? Swami Chinmayananda once was talking and he said, it's like sorrow comes, you say, oh, welcome, have a cup of tea, bye. Happiness comes, welcome, have a cup of tea, get out. So this is the yogi's life. When one lives this way, then the mind becomes tranquil. And without the mind becoming tranquil, because it is not affected by what's outside, but by an inner state. So, sarvatra samabuddhaya means that under all conditions, you know what happens with that? You are able to also function in this world properly, because you don't care about what others are talking about. Otherwise, we are always wondering, what is that guy talking about me? Would he have gone and said something to the boss? And if I am the boss, I am wondering, what is the other guy talking about? Why? So, Krishna says, it doesn't matter how you worship me. If you have these attributes, one is you are in control of your emotions and your senses. Two, your mind is tranquil because under all situations. When this happens also, the brain becomes sharp actually. It doesn't subside into some kind of a lethargy. Lethargy is not a function of a yogi's mind. That is tamo guna. Some people are so lazy that they think they are mostly in samadhi. But samadhi is sattva guna. It's not tamo guna. Don't mistake the two. So, So second quality, sarvatra samabuddhaya. And the third quality, sarvabhuta hiteratha, and who has the welfare of all living beings in their hearts. Krishna says to Arjuna, if these three qualities are there, it doesn't matter what mode of worship you adopt. It's okay. If you don't have this, then you are not a yogi or a bhakta. So this is the essence of the message of the Gita. And I thought, since it is Janmashtami, it's nice to put forward the teachings of somebody who was supposed to have been born today. Now this born today must have happened many years ago, although we celebrate it now. What should happen at this point? Because it is Krishna Janmashtami, we should also be born again into an understanding of how to be free. This is called the next word. When in the ancient times, traditionally, when somebody was initiated and given a cross thread, then he would be called a Dvija. Dvija means twice born, born again. Now we have Christian sects, born again Christians. So this born again means that you are born into the spiritual world while still being in the physical world. And understanding that to be born is to be born into the spirit, which is absolute and infinite. And the good news is that we are a spark of that. This understanding, if it happens, then Janmashtami has taken place in everybody's heart. Not only outside, which we celebrate. Right? So you must be also busy. There must be many things to do. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Jai Shri Krishna. Do we have 10-15 minutes? Q&A? There is 10 minutes or 15 minutes Q&A because I need to also go somewhere. So if anybody has to discuss something Please take the microphone because then everybody can hear it. Hey, is that young man wanting the microphone?
Sir, you talked about attachment to the inner to get away from the attachment from the outer. But when you have an attachment, almost automatically an expectations also builds. And it becomes a sorrow or
right.
of some sort. So how do you...
Right.
What is the...
You know what I said? What I said was, the mind refuses to remain in a blank limbo. It can't remain. It will always try to fill itself up with something. So I'm saying, instead of filling it up with all kinds of knickknacks and useless things, fill it up in the beginning with things that are conducive to one's spiritual progress. That's what I mean. Of course, it becomes a desire, but this desire is better than that desire. What I'm trying to say is that you cannot be suddenly desireless. It's not possible for the human mind. So fill it up with beautiful desires, which are inner, and then slowly, you will get to the spot where you are free. Till then, it's you know what I'm trying to say, that you need an anchor. You cannot just leave it like that. Some great rishis might have done it, but it's not so easy to do that. So have an anchor. The good, the better. You know what I mean. That's what I meant. I'll tell you what, again explaining. You see, you go to a temple, or you have in your own house a little nice temple, and you decorate it. You put garlands, you put chandan, you put fragrance, you do arati. You see, you're doing something. The mind cannot be without doing something. Then it gets idle. You know what an idle brain is, devil's workshop. So engage it in such activities that it takes you, and then when you come and sit down, bring that deity into your heart, which is where it originally is anyway, and worship it. Then it's easier done, than otherwise. Otherwise, if the mind is occupied with other things, if you expect when you sit down to bring it within, it becomes difficult. That's what I hope you...
Namaste, Shri. So my question is like twofold.
Two or one?
It's a twofold but connected question.
Okay.
So one is, so how does one know that they're progressing well in their spiritual endeavor? And two, is it necessary to be initiated? Of course, Guru is important, there's no doubt about that, but for one to go forward, is it required that one should be initiated and have a proper Guru?
Let me answer your first question first. What are the signs that one is progressing spiritually? Right? Now, one thing you will notice is that if you are progressing spiritually, these three qualities which have been described in the 12th chapter, these will begin to increase in us. That's one way of figuring out. In your day-to-day life, which is also important. Two, internally, when you sit down to meditate, it will be easy for you to anchor your mind within, faster than before. Right? Third, you will begin to enjoy your meditation. There is a blissful feeling and not sorrow and pain. Of course, there will be, as he said, some desire to do that, which is like a sorrow. But that is a sweet sorrow. Sometimes human beings enjoy sorrow. I'm not saying you should, but when it comes, take it as it comes. What do you think of people retired from the army, for instance? I mean, from anywhere, who's sitting in the evening with a peg of scotch on the rocks and listening to Scale Saigal singing, Jab dil hi toot gaya. It's sad. What are they enjoying? But there is an enjoyment in sorrow also. You know what I mean? So the yearning for the Supreme is kind of a sorrow which becomes very enjoyable. I'll tell you something. In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, there's an interesting episode when he's crying and crying for days, asking for a darshan of Krishna. Suddenly Krishna appears. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells to him, why did you come now? This was so sweet, I was earning for it. It's gone now. The suspense is broken. You know what I mean? So, that's one thing. That's what you asked. I'm trying to explain to you. And usually people who have really progressed, you'll find that they are always happy under all circumstances. Even if they haven't had the full vision of the divine, they would be satisfied and say, this is all I'm qualified for, maybe, but I'll work hard. Okay. Now the second question is a little dicey question, actually. First one is very simple. Do you need a guru? You need a guru, or do you need to be initiated? Now, do you know the meaning of the word initiation? It means, what do you say when there is a meeting in progress? Initiate the proceedings. It need not necessarily mean whispering something in the ear in a dark room. Need not. It could be that is a turning point where you are initiated into the spiritual life. That is sufficient as an initiation. That's called initiate. Diksha means showing direction. If the direction is grasped, dig is direction. If that is grasped, then the initiation is already taken place. Other formalities of initiation do not matter. If you are having some satisfaction, it is all right, but it doesn't matter. About whether you need a teacher, well, it's good to have somebody who has explored this largely unexplored territory. However, sometimes good not to have anybody to guide you, then fall into the wrong hands. Because it will take you another many years to come out of that before you go to something better. So if it's sometimes better, see, I'll tell you one thing. If you consider the Supreme Being as your guide, today Janmashtami, if you think Krishna is my guide, he has already initiated Arjuna. It is there in the Gita. Let me take it up and read it and figure out what the instructions are. Let me consider him as my guru. Suppose you think this way in your mind. I think if there is a necessity for you to have some physical instructor, that will also happen. What I am saying is, don't postpone the movement into the spiritual field because you have still not found a teacher. That's what I am trying to say. Not because I don't have time.
Namaste, sir. Namaste, sir.
Come back, sir.
I'm sorry. Namaste. I believe that everything, whatever we are doing, even in a movement of a finger, everything is controlled by a higher being. So where is my freedom in doing any sadhana?
That is your belief. It may or may not be true. You started the sentence by saying it is my belief.
It is my belief, yes.
So if you really believe in it and can fully stick to it, that's fine. But usually we don't. Devam Badi, Manishan Badi, this is how we think normally. But if you really have thought, then you will be ready to go through any sorrow, anything possible and say, it's all in God's hands. Right? If you have begun to have doubts on that, then one is not steady on that. Then it is better to say, let me do something to reach there. It's nice to say that whatever I am doing is also controlled from it. It's nice. It's good for the mind to do that. Mm-hmm. But we really don't know which is right and which is wrong in this matter.
Okay. Thank you.
So one last question.
There's a boy here.
Oh.
I have trouble focusing at school. Do you have any idea how to focus better?
What's that?
Do you know how to focus better?
How to focus better in your studies? Okay. Which class are you in? 8th. Do you like some subject? Do you like any subject? No, that's okay. I can hear you. Do you like any subject among your subjects in school? Which? Huh? History. So when you study history, do you feel any need for focus? This is the root problem. That your teachers, I don't know who they are, I hope they're not here, have not been able to generate an interest in you for the subjects. Okay, so, but you can't blame them and say that they'll have to change because I have to change. So my suggestion to this is, one or two suggestions. One is, develop an interest in your subject. Then you will not have a problem of focusing. Right? Yeah. So read other books also, general books on the subject. Not only what they give it to you in school. Try to get inputs from all around. 2, every day for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, sit down quietly, fix your attention between your eyebrows. Just watch your breath and calm your mind. Don't breathe or control your breath, just watch your breath. How it comes and goes. Then you will see that one day you are able to focus properly here. This focus you can take there and apply it to your studies. These 2 things. Welcome. There was one more question. Sir.
Just a reading question. Since you are going away, I've been wanting to ask this question for 3 days. How would you find that the guru that you might come across is not the right one for you?
Rather, you should find, is it the wrong one for you instead of the right one for you. I think there are a couple of things you should watch out. First thing, let me tell you, don't be in a hurry to find a guru. Even if you're physically aged, that's okay, it doesn't matter. Because a wrong thing can create more damage than none at all. Okay? Don't be in a hurry. And then, don't be impressed because somebody is looking nice or talking well. I know that there have been great spiritual teachers who didn't utter a word. And there have also been great spiritual teachers who are unknown. I always feel that the unknown ones are better than the known ones. Okay. 2. Third, watch out to see if the teacher you're looking at wants to give you something or take something from you. Good criteria. If they really want to give you something instead of taking something from you, then there is some fullness in that teacher which he doesn't need anything from anywhere else. This much is there, then it's a good idea to get in touch and keep in contact and see how things progress. Is the best I can tell you. So thank you very much. Sir, you have anything to say? No, here. Okay. Thank you very much. It was nice in the evening to have a nice talk on the Gita on Janmashtami. Thank you.
On behalf of all of you and on behalf of the Siva Vishnu Temple, I want to do namaskarams and thanks, dhanyavads to Sri MG for a wonderful satsang today. It is very brief but full of meaning and that we can all think about much more deeper fashion. Request Sri MG to come more frequently to the temple and enlighten us on various spiritual topics. Thanks again. Thanks all of you for coming.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.